Early March 2026, Northeast Ohio. Quiet town surrounded by dense forests, and suddenly, witnesses begin reporting something massive moving through the trees. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. Within just a few days, hikers, drivers, and homeowners all describe the same thing: a towering human like creature disappearing into the woods. Different towns, different witnesses, but the same description keeps coming back: tall, hairy, walking upright, and the sightings seem to be moving east across Portage County towards Trumbull County.
But psychology asks a slightly different question. Why do multiple people in different places start seeing the same thing at the same time?
Welcome to Monsters in the Mind. I'm Joseph. I study cryptids, folklore, and strange stories people tell about creatures that may or may not exist.
And I'm Igor. I'm a cognitive psychology professor at Indiana University, South Bend. I study perception, memory, and how the mind decides what is real,
Each episode will explore famous cryptid encounters.
and the psychology that might explain why people experience what they do.
The report started March 6 at Manitoua Center in Portage County. Two separate encounters. Witnesses described a large upright creature near the woods, tall, covered in hair, standing on two legs. Both sightings were brief, just a few seconds, and then the figure disappeared into the trees. These encounters immediately got people talking because Bigfoot sightings happen, but multiple sightings in a small area within a few days? That's unusual. Jeremiah Byron, host of the Bigfoot Society podcast, told reporters that clusters like this are rare. He said that witnesses he spoke with were emotional, shaken, and wanted to remain anonymous.
And this is where psychology introduces something called social contagion. There's classic research by Barsade in 2002 that shows that emotions and behaviors can spread through groups, almost like a virus. Once an idea enters a community, it doesn't just stay within one person. It spreads through conversation, through news, through social media, and once it spreads, it begins to shape how people interact with what they experience. So after those first reports, people in the area weren't just walking through the woods anymore. They were walking through the woods with Bigfoot already in mind.
Then came March 9th. Two more sightings in Garrettsville. A man and his friend were hiking on the Headwaters Trail when they saw something step out from the tree line. They described a 10-foot tall Sasquatch, covered in dark hair, standing upright. One detail stuck with them. When the creature turned, it didn't turn its head at the neck, it turned at the shoulders. And then it disappeared. Later that same day, an older woman in Windham reported seeing something massive running in and out of the woods. She said it was hair covered, on two legs, not moving like a bear, but like a human. At this point, the descriptions are starting to sound very similar.
And this is where something called the availability heuristic comes into play. There's classic work by Tversky and Kahneman in 1973 showing that the easier something is to recall, the more likely we think it is. Once people hear about Bigfoot, Bigfoot becomes mentally available. Now, every sound in the wood isn't just a sound, it's a possibility. Every movement in the trees becomes something to interpret. Bigfoot didn't become more common, it became more available. There's also something else happening here, something called schema activation. Bartlett showed in 1932 that people rely on mental templates to interpret what they experience. A schema is basically your mind's shortcut. It's a stored pattern for what something is supposed to look like. So when information is incomplete, your mind fills in the gap using that template. And the Bigfoot template is surprisingly consistent. Tall, hairy, upright, human-like. So when something unclear appears, your mind doesn't ask, "What is this?" It asks, "What schema does this match?"
But the descriptions are really consistent.
Exactly, they are. But that's what you would expect if people are using the same mental template.
The next report came early the next morning, March 10th, Newton Township. A man was taking his German Shepherd outside at 4 a.m. When the dog reached the door, it started freaking out. It lunged toward the wood line. The man looked out and saw a large black shadowy figure, 9 to 10 feet tall, moving in the tree line. The dog couldn't stop shaking, and then the figure disappeared. All of these encounters lasted only a few seconds. No photos, no videos. Witnesses weren't prepared. They were just outside, doing normal things.
So this may involve something called memory reconstruction. Loftus and Palmer showed in 1974 that memory doesn't work like a recording. They demonstrated this by having participants watch a car crash, and then those participants were asked how fast were the cars going. Changing one word in the question from hit to smashed altered people's memories. Those who heard smashed remembered higher speeds and even recalled seeing broken glass that never existed. So every time we recall an event, we rebuild it using emotion, using prior discussions, using imagination. Over time, those memories can become more vivid, more detailed, more certain. And even those details weren't originally observed. And there's one more factor: fear. Eastbrook showed in 1959 that when arousal increases, attention narrows. When the brain believes a threat may be present, the goal becomes survival, not accuracy. Perception becomes faster, but less precise, which means in a frightening moment, you may react quickly, but you may not be seeing clearly.
Jeremiah Byron said a cluster like this hasn't happened since the 1970s. One of the most famous incidents occurred in Minerva, Ohio, in August 1978, known as the Minerva Monster. A family reported being terrorized by a large creature. Multiple witnesses saw it. Sheriff's deputies responded. They didn't find the animal, but they did report a strong musky aroma in the air. To this day, the Minerva Monster remains unexplained, just like the current sightings in Portage County.
The mind's measure on the Ohio Bigfoot flap. This wasn't just a series of sightings, it was a system. One report made the next one more likely, and the next, and the next. The environment didn't just contain trees and shadows, it contained expectations, stories, possibilities. Which means the real mystery might not be what was moving through the Northeast Ohio in March of 2026. It might be how the human mind, once it hears a story, begins to see it everywhere. And that raises an interesting question. Did these psychological factors make people see something that wasn't there? Or did they actually make people more accurate by drawing attention to something that was already there? Because expectation doesn't just increase false alarms. Sometimes it helps you detect a real signal. So the Ohio Bigfoot flap may not just be about misperception. It may be about how the mind adjusts when it believes something important might be out there.
But sometimes the mind doesn't just interpret something ambiguously. Sometimes it thinks something is a threat.
And when that happens, perception changes dramatically. Your mind shifts into survival mode. It becomes faster, more reactive, more likely to see danger, even when the signal is unclear.
Next time, we'll travel back to 1952, Flatwoods, West Virginia. A bright object falls from the sky. A group of witnesses approach and encounter something they will never forget.
The Flatwoods Monster and the psychology of threat detection.
Thanks for listening to Monsters in the Mind. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Igor.
And until next time, keep it creepy.